Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu.
Okay, anything you say can and will be used against you. It's on tape now. Well, they don't use tape. It's on something. Okay. All right, let's dig into the text here. And okay, now let's dig into the text. I'm pretty sure I can hit the correct button now. I'm on a different computer. Okay, stages leading to liberation and full awakening. Attaining spiritual realizations occurs over time. Learning the stages leading to liberation and full awakening gives us an idea of the process of spiritual transformation we will undergo and the practices that will bring about the desired spiritual progress. There are many similarities in the paths and fruits of the Shravakas, solitary realizers, and bodhisattvas. There are many differences in them as well. So right off the bat, what's a Shravaka? What's a solitary realizer? What's a bodhisattva path? So you'll hear this more in Tibetan Buddhism, in the Mahayana path. We're going to talk about these different vehicles. So Shravakas are hearers, the hearers of the teaching. So the first two, Shravakas, solitary realizers, are pathways that lead to liberation, to what we call an arhat. They're liberated from samsara, cyclic existence. They've achieved nirvana. And a bodhisattva path is one in which not just liberated yourself in that sense, but you actually achieve what we call full Buddhahood. And so the distinction would be an arhat is liberated, has achieved nirvana, but there's still some very subtle obscurations that are not full Buddhahood. Okay. And the analogies they say is it's kind of like the smell of an onion after the onion's been removed, right? The obscurations are removed, but there's this faint odor, right? There's this real subtle bit. And full Buddhahood, totally removed. There's a really good talk by Bhikkhu Bodhi on his view on these two things. And what's the difference between sort of the Theravadan path of achieving nirvana versus bodhisattva path. And the way he describes it is that people, and this is where you hear the hearers, right, the Shravakas, is they hear the teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha had said thus, and they follow the Buddha's teachings, and they become liberated. And the Buddha taught to be liberated, so they become liberated, they achieve nirvana. And then after this went on for some centuries, some people were thinking, well, he taught us how to be liberated, but what is it to be a Buddha? And that distinction. And then all these bodhisattva sort of path, the path of bodhisattva, all these people started investigating what it is to be a Buddha themselves, and not just receive teachings from Buddha to be liberated. And then there was a much more emphasis than on bodhisattva path. Really interesting discussion. You can, maybe I'll repost it. I found it quite meaningful. And so when Tibetans, they'll put these categories. Shravakas are hearers. They hear the teachings. They meditate on the teachings. They really get into the 12 links of dependent origination, and they achieve liberation. Solitary realizers are just that. They basically, they don't really even you as a teacher, they get teachings and then they practice on their own and achieve liberation, solitary realization. And then the bodhisattva path, which is this path that we're cultivating to achieve full Buddhahood, and it's going to be immersed in compassion and the desire to free all beings of sufferings. So having said that, they're going to get into what's called 5 pathways of the mind, 5 pathways. And you can actually, they have the same labels of the 5 pathways, but they're different practices based on which vehicle. Everybody with me so far? We're getting all nerding out on Buddhism. So and these pathways is what they're going to break down, these 5 pathways of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and then no more learning. These are the 5 pathways of the mind. So they use the same language, but they're different within these vehicles. So having said that, that's the overview about what will be discussed. But basically, there are these pathways that you enter when you really engage in this path of liberation, and they're pathways of the mind. All right. And I don't think it's going to get very complicated. Before even entering one of the 3 vehicles, Shravaka, solitary realizer, or bodhisattva, we must have a correct and stable understanding of Buddhist worldview, purify our minds, and create. Hang on, I got this little pop-up in my mind. Much merit. Each vehicle has 5 paths. Passive, accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning. Practitioners enter the Shravaka path of accumulation when their aspiration to attain liberation remains stable day and night. Practitioners enter the Bodhisattva path of accumulation when bodhicitta spontaneously arises in relation to any and all sentient beings. So those are explanations of what it really means to enter these mind streams with Shravaka, or solitary realizer, renunciation. That's what they're saying. When you have full renunciation, when you're not even remotely interested in the 8 worldly concerns, when you're not caught up in the delusions and attachments and as soon as I said that, heated car seats pops up, of this world, right? You're just not, and so full renunciation, like that's all you're here for. You're here to eliminate all this affliction. You got one purpose, and that's every moment of every day. It's stable. For a bodhisattva path, then you enter the path of accumulation. So it's like everything we're doing is just to get ready to enter, right? We're just getting ready. We're want to get rid of the anger, but I still want to have my little attachments here, right? And but when that's just boom, I have one purpose. I'm here to be a benefit, to purify. Like this is my deal. Then you enter that. The way it's described for a bodhisattva is that you would have that same level of renunciation that this is, why would I waste my time decorating samsara? Like, but you would have that same degree of renunciation to the sense of all other beings. You can't stand to see them suffering. You just couldn't. You would have the same feeling of individual renunciation, but for all others. And you'd have that level of compassion that I can help all these beings. What's more important than that? There's just nothing. There's just nothing more important than that. And that you'd have that stability. And then you'd enter into the bodhisattva accumulation. So, that might take us another week or two and maybe a follow-up session. But, we're working on it. So, again, this is the journey. All right, let's pop it up here. So all three vehicles, practitioners in all three vehicles, practitioners go from the path of accumulation to the path of preparation. Then when they have attained the union of serenity and insight on emptiness. Okay, so once we've achieved this renunciation, this bodhicitta, we're in the path of accumulation. And again, it's mind pathways. And we move from accumulation to preparation when we've attained the union of serenity and insight on emptiness. So the union of shamatha and vipassana, right? This union of a direct realization of emptiness stabilized with shamatha. This is still a conceptual realization, but through repeated practice, they remove the veil of conceptuality and realize emptiness directly. At this point, they attain the path of seeing and become Aryas. So, accumulation, we get there with renunciation, bodhicitta, preparation, get this union of shamatha, the vipassana, the insight that we gain in vipassana, direct realization of emptiness, and then that union, the stability, we stabilize it, and then have this immersed experience. And then we're at the path of seeing, and now Aryas. Okay, so that's an extra 2 weeks and some follow-up retreats. Okay, and now we're there. Okay. Oops, I went to the book without sharing it. Hang on a second. Okay, so at this point, they attain the path of seeing, become Aryas. Stream enters. The first level of Shravaka Aryas are on the path of seeing, okay, this is that third, and have eliminated acquired afflictions. They've eliminated acquired afflictions. Afflictions may arise in their minds, and they may create destructive karma. However, this karma is not strong enough to project rebirth in samsara. So they're not going to be thrown back into samsara. So they no longer begin new sets of the 12 links, the 12 links of dependent origination, which is the cycle of samsara. They're not part of that anymore. They still have seeds of projecting karma of many other sets of 12 links in their mind streams. And when these are activated by craving and clinging, they take rebirth. Although they are not liberated from cyclic existence, they are, wait. Okay. They still have the seeds of projecting karma of many other sets of 12 links, okay, other sets on their mind streams. And when these are activated by craving clinging, they take rebirth in those. Although they are not liberated from cyclic existence, although they are not liberated from cyclic existence, they're not fully under its sway in the way ordinary beings are. Okay. Stream enterers can no longer be reborn in unfortunate realms, although they still experience suffering and sickness when born as humans. So again, just not in the way that we do. Continuing to practice, stream enters gradually reduce layers of afflictions with sensual attachment and malice have been subdued to a certain degree. They become once returners, so called because they will take only one more rebirth in the desire realm. Once returners may still create destructive karma, although it is weak. Ordinary beings are attached to the self, and while dying the fear that they will no longer exist arises, followed by craving for samsaric aggregates. This precipitates the bardo state. Attachment to self may arise in stream enters and once returners, but investigate it with wisdom, they cast it out. It does not arise in non-returners. Okay, so there's a lot of techie stuff here. I don't want us to get too confused. So getting back, so each week has 5 paths. We've got these. We were moving really smoothly through this. We got to the path of seeing. We became Aryas. And then they threw in the stream enters here. First level of Shravaka Aryas are at the path of seeing and have limited quiet afflictions. And then they're comparing the differences between these stream enters, once returners, and where their mind stream is versus us as conventional samsaric humans. And eventually, when they abandon all afflictive obscurations completely, they attain the Shravaka path of no more learning and become arhats. Those who have attained liberation and are totally free of psychic existence. So they go from seeing to meditation, and that's what's being emphasized here, is they'll actually eliminate these final afflictions, and then there are no more learning. So all that to say, because it's clear as mud, that what we want to remember is how we're experiencing ourselves in this world is with our mind streams. And the more that we purify our mind stream, the more that we cultivate the insight available in the mind, the more we cut through afflictive states, all of this changes. And so Nirvana is not some place. I get to experience things differently. And that's those big, I think, misperceptions, or go to some pure land in a sense. But it's really all of this is working with our minds. It's all working with our mind streams. It's working with the conditioning, the patterns. And, you kind of think about a computer, which has its formatting, and you're kind of reformatting and eliminating a lot of the format that's not necessary, the overlay. And what's underneath it is our Buddha nature. So it's nice to know that there is a charted path and a process that happens. And again, it's highlighted depending on the vehicle. Someone is in Shravaka, solitary realizer, Bodhisattva path. They all have the same names. They have different practices to move through those 5 pathways. And it gets very subtle. But one of the key things that was brought up there that I don't want us to miss is the union of meditative stability and insight. That is the Buddha's big epiphany. That's the thing that makes it all different. is a process, a pathway where we can stabilize our attention through shamatha, have meditative quiescence, and have that stability to then meditate on the nature of self, the nature of existence, the nature of my perceptions, and we call these five aggregates, and recognize emptiness. And the emptiness isn't that there's nothing there. You're empty of all the overlays, all the conditioning, all the pattern. And then being able to sit with that emptiness with the stability of shamatha and saturate the mind where it literally purifies and removes these delusions, then we wake up. So as we can understand, that's a process and it's very subtle, and we're still in a very gross mental state where a 24-minute meditation session might feel long. So what is happening though at our level is that we're still doing these same things, right? Our mind is hopefully a little more stable than it was before we started engaging in these practices, right? And our insight and understanding of our thoughts and our emotions are a little wiser than they once were, right? And so, now I know I am not my anger. I know I experience anger. It'll come, it will go. It has these conditions. I know that person I'm pointing over to is not the cause of my anger. They're triggering it, right? So we're cultivating this insight, this wisdom, this vipassana as we engage in our lives mindfully. And through our daily practice, we're cultivating more stability of our attention and our capacity to be mindful. And if you recall last week, the suggestion was to use our ethics, our wholesome actions, as our practice of mindfulness. And then check in on that through the day. And that's the object to bear in mind. And in doing so, we cultivate more virtue, and we'll also start to see how our mind will go to unwholesome and unhealthy thoughts, habits, and tendencies. Now we're getting insight, right? Now we're getting insight. And so we're doing this on more of, call it a gross level. And what they're describing is on a subtle level, right? So we don't need to be disheartened and think, okay, I don't know, 50 lifetimes from now, I'm going to get there. It's every day we are having opportunities to make strides. And in this very life, having the opportunity to be more present, to be more stable, to engage in our life, cultivating causes for more well-being and eliminating causes of suffering, mental and emotional suffering. And we gain insight, we gain wisdom. And now if we, let's say, meditate on the transforming unskillful events, we're going to have a sort of a union of meditation and insight, right? It's an analytical meditation. And we have these little unions of, oh yeah, I remember what it's like to act out in that way. I remember what that felt like. And I remember when I get that sensation in my body, I have a choice now. So now I'm gaining that capacity. And then what happens after a while in this gross human form is when I get activated, more immediately I know it has nothing to do with them. It doesn't add up anymore that that's them. It's, oh, here's this stuff showing up in my life again, and I might even have the capacity to just, okay, that'll come and go. still there, still have those kinds of karma. Okay. Or, whoa, that's popping up. What do I need to do to respond in a healthy way? And then, we do that. And then after a while, it's just more natural. I get the sensation in my body, I'm already acting in a way that is healthy and meaningful. And often it's just allowing it to happen. We had a good discussion at 7-Point Mind training around shifting our perspective when we are having like activation of emotions and feelings that are strong. So it's not that these practices I just described are some faraway thing. We can already be accumulating merit and virtue and wisdom. We can already be in this preparation of unifying our meditation with our insights. We can already achieve some degree of seeing what's delusional and what's helpful in a real way in our lives. And that can be happening right here, right now. And it is. So I think of this path of liberation as little liberations every day. I'm a lot more liberated today than I was 40 years ago. Okay. And I'm more liberated as I've engaged in these Buddhist practices since 2001, somewhere around there. And so my mind doesn't have a lot of the overlay of misperceptions that it once had. Still plenty, but it's kind of like we shoveled the snow off the roof. The roof's still there, but I got some of that snow off, and so that overlays not nearly as thick as it once was, and so now more naturally I'm capable of responding. More naturally, I think of things, and I'm saying me, but I'm talking about we, of interdependence, right? And of causes and conditions, and that I am not a frozen, stagnant John that I drag around every day, that John's becoming in every moment. And I'm fluid. And hopefully I can still do push-ups. We'll see. And, some of the things come and go. And, but it's always a state of becoming. And I have more capacity to shift perspective and feel differently because I bring a different perspective. And I have more agency then about how I perceive. And I'm not a prisoner of whatever is being served up to me. That's the way Lama Alan says, reality's being served up to you on a plate and just accepting it like that, like whatever feeling or whatever thought. No, I don't have to. That dish is not delightful to me. I'm setting that one aside. I'm going to look at this situation differently and have that capacity. So we have more liberation in terms of how we get to experience things. And so it's helpful to see the pathways of the mind in this way and not think of it as some faraway thing, but much more so about in our own daily lives, how we are accumulating, how we are preparing our minds with shamatha and vipassana, how we are gaining some insight, some seeing, and through that seeing, the next one would be meditation, stabilizing some of the wisdom that we have, right? Stabilizing it. And so I don't have to keep learning that darn lesson again and again. I can, oh yeah, that doesn't work anymore. And that gradual process of leaving the teddy bear at home, as Jetsuma points out. I don't need to, those things that I was once attached to are just gradually become less interesting, those bad habits, unhealthy behaviors, patterns that I developed at once that helped me, like the teddy bear did once. are not necessary anymore. Just not that interesting, not that needed. I'm cultivating a way of being, and this is this gradual process. I feel like we got through that okay. I got a little stuck there on that stream enterers part. Would have been nice to prep that. Yeah, like I said, yeah, I did some skimming. Okay, so Nicole.
Could you explain the Lama Alan Wallace metaphor about the reality served up on a platter? Because the way I heard it initially was reality served up on a platter and we don't have to just accept it. And I was like, oh yeah, we like, your car breaks down, that just happens. But then I heard you say, um, it's more how we just the reality is how we perceive it.
Right. So most of our life, without really um, having any type of training, oh, terrible day. Yeah, it's a terrible day, and I'm having a terrible day, and I just accept I'm having a terrible day, right? In other words, since we're young and growing up, reality is what's hitting us, right? And the feelings that react to it, and whereas I actually how it's coming up to me in my first initial response, I don't have to accept that. I can do what you said. Oh, wait, cars break down. Instead of, I might have had, damn it, this car's breaking down. This isn't right. Why me? That whole storyline, right, can arise quite naturally. But today you can go, oh, believe it or not, cars break down. I think that's why they have auto mechanics. And I've seen those auto repair stations before. I've noticed them. And, and accepting the situation, what is the opportunity to move forward? So I don't have to accept the initial event and how it's coming at me in the emotional or mental response that we more automatically just live in, right? We just, whatever is happening, somebody tells, oh, that's terrible, or this, I got this news, I'm going to feel this way. I got this info, I'm going to feel that way. We're just on autopilot so much. That's what I mean. It's served up, and I don't need to accept the way I'm feeling about it in the sense of that's how it is. I get to experience the feelings and go, oh, I'm kind of upset about that, and
Something in me is experiencing upset,
yeah,
and that's not me. That's just an old something wiring, but I don't have to get upset. I don't, maybe I can look at it in a different way.
yeah, and we're not stuffing the upset, and I can just go, oh wow, got a little triggered by that, or I got a little insecure by that, and but I have choices with that, and can notice my comparison mind pop up a lot, comparing, and oh, okay, so so that's what I mean by served up, dished up, because that's how it is. We hang out by the what's the old analogy, the water cooler at work, where all the gossip is, and yeah, that's an old one, water cooler at work. So we gather and we gossip, and you know, and we don't get it. We don't need to do any of that anymore. We get to recognize that we're a part of something that's unfolding, and it's quite fascinating. And I'm going to have thoughts and feelings in this human form, and it's going to occasionally inspire me to make some pretty poor choices. And and then I can go, okay, well, let me learn from those instead of I'm an idiot, and I don't have to fall in those patterns. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot more agency, a lot more choice, and a lot more capacity to cultivate, these potentials in us than we used to have, right? I mean, I'm looking at this group here, and I think I can pretty much say, yeah, I know you, and I would confidently say that everyone I'm experiencing here has a lot more capacity than you once had, right? Come on, Amy, nod your head, man. Work with me. Okay. All right. I'm trying to get 100% here. So, all right. Uh, the, and as I've pointed out so often, is we don't give ourselves that credit. We don't see our growth. We don't see how incredibly miraculous your capacity is compared to just humanity in general, who is unaware and responding to reality as they're experiencing it, as though that's the way things have to be. And so everyone's here has an incredible capacity that you demonstrate on a daily basis. And that's amazing. It's really amazing. We say things in our discussions here that are kind of we get used to, but you share that with another person and it blows their mind. It just blows their mind. I mean, if you tell someone that there's no annoying people in the world, they're just wrap your head around that. And everyone by now should know that the reason I emphasize that teaching is so that you guys can't say I'm annoying. So it's a side perk. So is it Keith or Kurt that had their hand up?
That was me. Thanks,
Okay.
John. That was a really good explanation of that stuff. I've read it 3 or 4 times and just been, wow, there's a lot going on there that I didn't quite get, and that helped. But Keith and I were talking to you. She said something about how, we notice ourselves getting better. We were just commenting about how sometimes I feel like it's getting worse, and I think it's. But when I look at my behavior in the world, when I look back and I look at my behavior in the world, it's getting way better. My capacity to do things, to understand, to interact with others, to be of service is increasing, really, really quickly. However, on a day-to-day basis, it it doesn't feel that way a lot of days, right? It feels like, and I think some of that is just the the mindfulness component of it, where I'm just noticing the stuff that I never used to notice before, right? The background noise was so high that I never noticed the crazy thought after crazy thought after crazy thought, right? And now I kind of notice them a little bit more, and so it feels like I'm going backwards or I'm not making any progress. So I really do have to stop and look and say, oh, well, I'm handling things way different than I did 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years, 20, it's like night and day, right? Yeah, I finally have gotten that teaching from you, right? After your 450th time of telling me, don't compare yourself to where you think you should be, right? Compare yourself to where you were. That really helps. It's like, hey, I learned something. Thanks.
Thanks. And remember how incredible it is to even see the mind like that. I'm going to probably come back to it in a minute, but I want to hear from Ashley. I know you're going to find that mute button. It's there somewhere. You know what? I can ask you to. Oh, there you
Okay, I think I got it.
got it.
Okay, this is more of kind of like a academic kind of question maybe, but how do those 5 stages connect with the Lam Rim? Is it because I'm a little kind of confused about how they all fit together? Or do they? Are they separate things?
No, so the Lam Rim which is, what all these texts are around. Lamrim is the stages of the path to enlightenment in terms of where you're at any stage in the path. And so this is actually outlined depending on which, so if you remember the middling capacity, so middling capacity would be the Shravaka and solitary realizers. They're going to be, these are those descriptions. And then with the, I don't like to use less, middle, and greater, I mean, that it's much more, let's just say the first motivation. The middling one, and then the bodhisattva motivation. Then they would describe these 5 pathways of the mind with some different practices, and benchmarks. But basically, everything in the Lamrim is moving you to these pathways. So, for example, the first of the stages of meditation in a Lamrim are going to be around, teacher and so forth, but it'll get to the rare and precious life and karma and all that. Well, that's going to get you to renunciation, and renunciation is the entry point to the 5 paths, right?
Okay.
And then the practices then of shamatha, which is here in the Lamrim, are going to get us towards preparation, right? So if you think of Lamrim, it's all preparation, right? To build renunciation. And then the preparation of insight with shamatha, which is built in. And then the analytical meditations within Lamrim are going to help with that insight as well. And then the union of these two. So basically, as you go through the Lamrim, you're moving towards accumulation and preparation. And preparation is when you really have the stability of mind and the insight conjoined. And then you can saturate that. So all of Lamrim is getting you to where your mind is purified and refined enough to do that. So what we're doing mostly is purifying karma, getting rid of that stuff. We are cultivating good karmic imprints and merit to be able to absorb the teachings better, to be around in groups like this where we have that access. And then we're engaging in lessons of the types of attitudes that support the mind of awakening, right? Loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, and so forth. And so everything in the Lamrim is really fertilizing and preparing that entry point, these 5 pathways.
Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. So going back to just what we were talking about with Kurt is I listened to Eve Ekman, and she's really quite a teacher and has a huge body of work around burnout in mental health professionals and so forth, and doctors and healthcare. And she did this study, and it was on physicians in their residency, right? The first 2 years where all the stress, all the pressures on. Right now, I mean, it's incredibly challenging for physicians, high suicide rates, lots of issues there. And so she was doing this study on residency. And what she did is she had 2 check-ins a day for a long period of time of their emotional state, right? Are you happy? Are you content? Are you scared? Are you angry? Like, the emotional wheel. And then she would have them explain what's going on. So it wasn't like a ton of check-ins. It was 2 per day, but they were in depth. How do you feel? Why are you feeling this way? What are you doing? Etc. And so at the end of this study, over all the data that she accumulated, in a high stress environment, resident, they're in that residency period where they're being evaluated and all that, burnout, fried. what she discovered was that about 50% of the time, their emotional state was content, happy, and even sometimes joyful. 50%. 17%, I think, was fear, and 13% was anger. So now how's that add up? If almost 50% of the time you have these emotional states, and then 17%, I think it was fear, and 13 was anger. And then you ask them how their day was, they're going to talk about the fear, the anger, the stress, and the burnout. And they're totally missing the 50%. I think it was 49. I don't want to exaggerate. It's around 49. So, but about half the time. So what she's recognizing is, I forget the name of that they identify as these sort of, when people report, what they remember is their peak emotion, right? So the peak emotion of that day, maybe it was fear, maybe it was anger, maybe it was something like that, was the strongest. You're going to remember that. And then you're going to remember the last kind of emotion. So they're kind of thinking about the day, what way you feel last, and what was the strongest. So basically, they're not attending to reality of their own emotional states throughout the day. And they're remembering the peak and the end. And so that's what I was relating to, as Kurt was thinking, is we don't see and experience and acknowledge all the time that we're okay, that we're content, that we're doing well. As a matter of fact, when she checked in, they were giving good diagnosis, they had a good interaction with a client, they had, all these things that they did all day. And so the answer was what? The answer was to check in during the day and note the good you're doing, note the joy, note the contentment, note the healthy interaction, note the good interaction with the client, note that. And so we likewise, I think, need to do that ourselves, right? And start noting that the vast amount of our day, we're doing pretty good. We're pretty content, had a pretty good interaction, and not let the peak emotion overwhelm how far we've come, what we've learned, our resiliency, how we currently face adversity today compared to how we once did. And so I found that fascinating, that study. And I just think it's true of us. You guys hear me say it all the time, but yeah. And so as we engage in this path, really seeing that we are already on the path of liberation, right? We're already liberating. We're already undoing things. We're already more resilient. We're already more resourceful. We already have more contentment. We already have more agency. We already have more capacity, right? It's pretty good. Yeah. Okay, one more, and I think we'll wrap up because I have chili waiting for me at home, I think, with some family.
I don't want to keep you from your chili.
No. This is what we're here for.
Yeah, the point you made, I can really relate to that. And just another change with this practice, this whole idea and practice of seeing things as opportunities. Like I really no longer label days as good or bad, right? I really like the word challenge. Like challenges have come up, and in those challenges, Wyatt's barking, sorry. In those challenges now, I don't know, 90% of the time or more, I don't succumb to judgment of it. I can have that perspective of opportunity. And, this is an equanimity opportunity, a patience opportunity, an acceptance opportunity. And, it really changes the game for me. It's like it's bringing everything on the path. And that whole good or bad day is just sort of has gone largely by the wayside.
That's wonderful here. Yeah, I think you're a living example of this. Really good one. You had some real opportunities that would devastate a lot of humans. Yeah, it's always inspiring to hear you share. Thank you. Yeah, just the capacity to shift how we attend to something. You want to talk about a superpower? Wow, right? And I've been on my kick about joyful effort. You guys heard me do a whole thing on that. But my kick is that I'm being robbed of my effort in a sneaky way. And I just don't think it's helpful. And I think it's happening to the world. We're being robbed of our effort through, computers and AI and all these things that we don't have to think. We don't have to. When's the last time you had to remember a phone number? Right? I mean, think about our mental capacity and what we used to think and create that we don't do anymore. Our thinking is being eliminated. And copy and paste, copy and paste world. I get these, I'm sure y'all do, when you get, was it what do they call it? When they want to verify it's you, to something tracking, whatever, they send you a text, right, with a number to verify it's you, right? How many people look at the number, remember the number, and type it in? Right? We don't do that. We copy it, we paste it in, right? And I'm starting, I'm doing the number now. I'm going, you're not robbing me of this. I'm going to look at that. I'm going to remember the number. I'm going to type it in. I've noticed that my capacity, isn't what it once was. And I think when I think about effort, oh, I have to remember this. No, I get to use my mind. I get to remember something. I get to use my mental capacity. It's a small thing. But what I've noticed is in this world of, Sam was mentioning a truck with heated seats and cooling seats, right? The seats are cool. The seats that warm up. The things get done. You just think about everything that's being done for us. What's there left for us to do? And how does that limit our capacity, right? And so shifting the mind to, what are the things that I can do that help my mind, that help my emotions, that, help me work with a difficult situation, or in just common ways that I think effort is being taken away from us. And it's sneaky because it feels good. Just copy and paste that. I don't know anybody's phone number anymore. I barely know my own. And think of the addresses we used to know. Think about the phone numbers we used to know. Think about, the way we used to write letters. And I was never a very good speller. I'm just going to say that up front. But this spell check does not help. I'm just saying. My spelling has gotten worse. And, and so the opportunities then of even how we can look at something that seems effortful and recognize it's an opportunity, or sometimes something that seems luxurious as a pleasure might actually be a hindrance. And so really having some capacity that we don't want to be robbed of our capacity, and in sneaky ways it can happen. Sneaky. Yeah. So that's my little tangent. I've just been noticing that a bit lately. It's already hard enough. I don't want them to take away my capacity. So yeah. So let's do what Keith was saying. See these wonderful challenges and opportunities to grow, to learn, and to improve ourselves. And in doing so, we get to make the world a better place. Best we can. All right, we'll go ahead and Sam's yawning at this point. We need to wrap this thing up. Pretty soon he'll be laying down, taking a nap. Let me bring up the dedication. So, what a gift it is to share our Thanksgiving Eve together. It's a real joy to be with all of you and to think about how we're supporting each other in cultivating these liberations ourselves and being of benefit to others. And with that said, let us dedicate the merit and wisdom that we have cultivated from our time together for the benefit of all. May they be free of suffering. May the seeds of these teachings that are planted grow within all. And may we cultivate these seeds in our own lives to engage in these paths and these practices of accumulating merit and wisdom, of ripening our minds, of liberating ourselves from afflictions, and recognizing our ultimate primordial wisdom so that we can be of greatest benefit to all. Let us dedicate. By this merit may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om